I'll tell you more about it after. Good morning, guys. I just told you that I am this morning. I am static. But there you go. Okay, everybody on the radio, please make sure that you put your messages in the left-hand column on the radio spot, please. And thank you very much for joining us this morning. And also, don't forget, soon after this interview, we're going back into the 80s music. Um, so watch out for that one. That's going to be really good. But in the meantime, I've got Michelle with me. Hello, Michelle. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I love the sound of 80s music. That's definitely my bag.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I can't. When I remember going to school and coming out and dancing to a bit of all sorts of stuff. ABBA, Duran, and whatever it was going around at that particular time. And Boyzone and yeah, and steps. Um, so yeah, that's me. I'll tell you what. What I want to do is last time we had an interview, I didn't cover what I wanted to cover, and
Oh,
so what I did, I really wanted to cover something this morning with you,
okay.
um, and it's about your story.
Oh
And
gosh. Okay.
okay, I hope you don't mind.
No,
Okay,
don't mind at all. I'm an open book,
you're
Steve.
a no problem book. Good, good, good. Um, you saying that was it your mum or your dad was a Latin dancer champion?
Oh yeah, I grew up in a very creative and therefore very chaotic household. So my dad was he actually worked in national newspaper. That was his day job. Um, but he was a jazz musician. So he played a full range of saxophone and he played piano and he composed a bit and he played in various jazz bands. And my mother was a trained opera singer and also champion Latin American dancer. Mm.
Gosh, gosh. And also, what was it like? Because you were being brought up in a family where, you know, they were probably so busy, and and at one particular time, in while I was reading about, you said that you became a loner. Is that right?
Well, I did because I was an only child for a start, and we didn't have any contact with extended family. And so, my mum then, even then, and it transpires that even from being a teenager, she was battling mental health issues. She was diagnosed a violent paranoid schizophrenic. So she was battling her demons from, as far back as I can remember. So her creativity was kind of an escapism and an outlet for her. So when she wasn't doing her work, or she wasn't all that keen on being a mother, it happened by accident. It wasn't natural for her.
Oh, you're not by accident. No way.
It definitely was.
No.
So her way of escaping her demons and dealing with her condition was to throw herself into her creativity. So her dance and her music and all of that. So that, at a young age, I couldn't go along with that. And so I was just left to my own devices pretty much, really. And my
What
dad...
was that like? What was that like for you? Because you was, it's like the same story as me. Because I was like that. My family was so busy in doing what they were doing, and I was alone trying to get on with the rest of my life.
Yeah, well, you have to be incredibly creative. You have to be incredibly resourceful. You have to be incredibly resilient. Because I had all sorts of other stuff going on. I had a stress stammer.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, my mum was a Jehovah's Witness, so we weren't really allowed to have non-Jehovah's Witness friends, and no Jehovah's Witnesses lived near us. So I spent, a lot of time on my own. So It could be very lonely. It could be very isolating. It doesn't give you a good perspective on the world, on reality, really, because you're not living in a reality. You're not living in a normal world. But on the positive side, it does teach you to be resourceful, resilient, and creative.
Yeah, and when you were kind of like, so when you were in your teens, then,
Mm.
did you have no friends at all, like at school or?
I did, because I went out of my way to, because I guess that this is where the being creative comes in, and a little bit sort of pushing boundaries and things. That I must have kind of known that I needed friends and needed contact with other people. And so I did have friends at school that I didn't declare, and they would get involved in things like the school youth club and the Girl Guides, which were completely forbidden for me because my parents split up when I was 5. And so I didn't see my dad very much then for quite a long time. I was on my own with my mum. So I didn't dare declare that I was doing these things, or woe betide me. But I would sneak off and go to the school youth club and learn to play chess. And I loved music. You know, they played music, we had a little disco and things like that. And I got involved with the Girl Guides. And I really would have been in trouble if I'd been found out for that, because that was linked to the Church of England. So I would have been in trouble for that. But I made friends through that. I just had to be very careful how I managed that.
Yeah, but it was tougher, wasn't it? Kind of like growing up, kind of, you know, being secretive in what you're doing because you're afraid of what your mum will say,
Yeah.
and then when your mum and dad split it up at 5 years old, you know, it's, you know, I bet that it, you know, how did you? I know how did you feel? Um, what was it like? What was it like being without a father? You know what I mean?
Oh God, Steve, honestly, I can't tell you. The day my dad left, it was like my entire world imploded. Because my dad was, he had his own sort of, you know, mental health issues that I think were mostly related to having to manage my mother. But he was such a gentle soul. He was very sensitive. He was very creative. We were very similar. And so he was my anchor, really. You know, he was my float and my anchor. So I would cling to him when things were bad with my mother. So when I say he left, he didn't leave. He was thrown out and all the locks were changed on the house, so he couldn't get back in. So it was my mother's decision. But yeah, my entire world imploded and I had no idea. In fact, I was actually genuinely convinced that I would not survive with my mother without my dad there.
Yeah, yeah.
Genuinely convinced.
And that's really horrible feeling, though, really, thinking about that.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, as a child, you know, particularly as a 5, 6-year-old, you don't know you have options. You don't know that one day you're going to have control over your own life, or that you can have control over your life. At that point in time, you just think that these adults around you control your life and dictate your life and how it's going to go. And so I only had one adult, apart from teachers at school, but I never, you know, they didn't know, to my knowledge, they didn't know what was going on at home. So, you know, didn't get involved. But that one adult, I thought at that point in time, controlled my entire life.
Yeah.
I couldn't even breathe without her permission, you know? So yeah, it was very, very difficult. But then I was passionate, so I couldn't communicate very well because I had a stammer and I was very introverted. You wouldn't believe that now, would you?
No, not now, you won't. No. But what was that like? What was that like to kind of like having a stammer? Because I had a stammer when I was at school. And
did you? Was that a stress stammer as well? Was yours a stress stammer?
yes, it was. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was really, really bad, and people used to take a mick out of me and stuff. And
Mm.
but while you was at school, it was probably the same, was it for you?
Yeah. I mean, this was the 70s. The 70s was quite a cruel decade. You know, things weren't. I had it all going for me. So I had my mum was a Jehovah's Witness. That was weird. My parents were split up. That wasn't the norm then. That was really unusual. I had the stammer, I was shy, I had it all going for me. So I was a really natural target for bullies, really natural target.
Yeah, gosh. Yeah. And let's move on a bit. And also, you were saying that you were a survivor of abuse.
Yeah, well, physical and emotional abuse at the hands of my mother,
Right.
extreme and fairly constant, because I was, it was just her and me for a long time, 6, 7 years. And so I was the only outlet for her frustration. She didn't dare do it with Jehovah's Witnesses. So I was quite literally her punch bag. So, yeah, and it's really only because I couldn't speak and I couldn't communicate very well. I was an avid reader. So I would just escape into books. And most of my spare time, avoiding coming home, on the way home from school, I'd go to the library. And most of my spare time was spent in the library. So it was only starting to read books that really changed my view of the world and opened me up to possibilities and adventures and how life could be different. And that is, so books literally saved my life. Books and reading, words, language saved my life. I realized what was possible. I realized there were other ways to live, and kind of set about planning it, really, planning my escape.
And also, didn't you have abusive relationships then?
Oh yeah, because when you come from knowing nothing but abuse as a child, and you're not yet aware that you have control or choice, which I later discovered, then you just fall into that pattern of abuse. And of course, as a really sensitive child as well, all I wanted to do was help my mother. I wanted to make her better so that my life would be better. And so then I fell into, I suppose, taking on projects, they'd call it now. Look at somehow people I was attracted to, or people were attracted to me, that needed help. And so I became the helper and the fixer. And of course, you can't fix people.
No, you can't now. Yeah.
But I really desperately wanted to try, because I'd always wanted to fix my mother so that I could have a better relationship with her and my life could be better.
How about relationships? How about relationships with like other people, like friendships or relationships with men?
Oh yeah, they're the relationships I'm talking about. But even friendships, you're when you have that kind of level of self-worth that I had from being abused for years, particularly emotionally abused, you have no self-worth. And so you don't think you're worthy of any better. You think that you have to that's the way it is for you. And so these projects I would take on wouldn't just be friends, they'd be intimate relationships as well. So, a guy would be worthless or abandoned or struggling and all that. And I think, well, I can help them. And of course, I couldn't help them. They could anybody can only help themselves. You can be guided. Somebody can turn the key in the lock for you. They can unlock your potential for change, but they can't change you. They can't fix you. So I tried over and over again. And of course, that just leads to frustration and resentment and resistance, which ends in abuse, and a couple of those relationships involved physical abuse as well.
Right. So were you physically badly attacked and stuff? Were you?
Yeah. I was hospitalized once.
Right.
We're hospitalized once.
Can you explain about that a little bit, or?
Well, it was at the point where I was beginning to be a little bit more enlightened about having choice and control. Right. And I was doing a tremendous amount of work on myself from a very early age. Before people talked about things like personal development, I was doing it, really. I was on that J word, that journey, where before it was even a thing. The bookshops and libraries didn't have sections called self-help or personal development, but I somehow knew, I suppose through reading all the books I'd read, I loved autobiographies, so I read lots of inspirational autobiographies, and I realized that you could take control and you could change, but that it all started with changing what goes on up here, changing your thoughts, the way you think about yourself first. So I learned to value myself. And so this particular relationship, I came to realize I had to get out. It wasn't what I deserved. I deserved better. But some people don't like to take no for an answer.
No, they don't, no.
So I tried to end the relationship. I even moved abroad for a little while to get away because I knew this particular person was a very strong character and he wouldn't let it go easily, you know. But when I came back, he was still waiting. And he actually broke into my house and attacked me.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, it hadn't subsided. But I'd done the work by then and it was horrific. It took a lot of physically recovering from and emotionally recovering from. But this sounds a really odd thing to say, but I'm almost grateful for that because that was the biggest, most transformational turning point for me.
It's like a wake-up call, isn't it?
Yeah, it really was. Like, you know, I could actually have not been here. And there were many times with my mother that could have happened as well. And so it was like not exactly a nudge from the universe, more like a kick up the arse.
We all need to kick up the arse sometimes, don't we?
Yeah, and it was like, get a grip, value yourself, realize you don't deserve this, get control and change things.
Yeah.
And so I was, I think, 18, 19 at the time. And that was the beginning of my real journey, I think.
Yeah, and it's, where was it? Because now, you know, it's like, I need you to step up and lead others to be a guide, a mentor, you know, and you kind of like writing words and languages. Tell us about that.
Well, like I say, books, words, everything I've learned about language and learned about writing became my therapy, I suppose. Reading books and then writing became my therapy because I couldn't communicate in any other way because of my stammer.
Yeah.
I stopped speaking. I just wouldn't speak. You know, I wouldn't put my hand up in school and all of that. So the way that I learned and the way that I expressed myself was through words and language. And then later on in my life, I started to discover more things around language, like neuro-linguistic programming and how you can change your mindset with language and therefore change your experience. The experience that we're all having can be changed with language. And language comes in many, many different forms. You know, it's not just a pen, it's visual, it's expressed, it's spoken. And so that has been my own therapy and a huge part of my own journey of completely changing my life around. And so I'm really passionate about using that with people to help them also change their lives.
Okay, so if somebody came to you today, Michele, and said, right, Michele, I need some help. What are the steps? What steps do you do to help them?
Well, first of all, I fully engage with their story. So it's about them sharing, feeling safe enough, reassuring them that it's safe enough to share their story with me. And then we start on a journey of talking about how they want that story to change. Because, you know, we can all change from this very moment in time. Our story is our history. It's a historical story.
Yeah.
From this moment in time, we can change, recreate, create a new story, and we can define the ending.
Yeah.
So it's all about connecting with the existing story and the past story. I don't believe in shutting the door on the past story because that's what's formed us. You know, without my story, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. But then I think we forget as adults that we can choose the bits that we keep, the bits that we rewrite, the bits that we burn. You know, we are the masters and the creators of our own story. And I think it's incredibly empowering when we realized that. The point at which I realized that was a completely transformational point in my journey.
Yeah.
So
What made you actually change? Kind of like, I know you said about that we did, you needed to kick up the ass and stuff like that. But what was the typical moment when you said, right, Michelle, I've had enough with myself. I'm going to change my life around and try to help others. Was it a particular trigger?
No, I've always been a people helper. Always been a people helper, because I've always reflected on how much easier, how much better it would have been for me if I'd had somebody around to help me. So even from a really young age, like I said, I took on projects. I always wanted to help people. I wasn't doing it in the right way. I wasn't doing it in a really informed way until I learned about all these different things that I've studied: neuroanthropology, neurolinguistics, clinical hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, all of these things I've studied that I used with myself first. I realized how powerful they are. And so I realized then that I could formulate the way that I help people and make it much more constructive and much more powerful. And so I created what's called my life path design method, which brings everything to do with words and language in, so we could be writing. And by the way, when I talk about writing, I don't mean, I'm not a crafted writer by any means, but writing. So I do something called automatic writing as well as part of the therapy that I bring into my work. Writing, committing things to paper is incredibly powerful, incredibly therapeutic, but it doesn't mean you have to be a gifted, crafted writer. But it's about more than writing as well. It's the spoken word. It's about how you physically express yourself. It's all words and language.
Yeah. And so if people would have come to you today and say, right, I need some help, and how can they contact you?
They can check out much more detail about what I do and how I do it at michelehenshaw.com or lifepathdesign.com. And they can contact me through there as well, or you can email me, michele@michelehenshaw.com. And you can find me on Facebook as well. You're welcome to friend me, or I have a group on Facebook as well. I don't know if I'm allowed to say about the group, Steve.
Yeah, you can say anything you want.
Some people don't like you to. It's called the Life Path Design Community on Facebook. So you're welcome to come and join us there. It's a free group. But the website really is the best place to sort of find out more about what it all entails and what's available. I only work one-to-one with people these days, and I don't do a huge amount. So, if anybody wanted to, we could always have a chat. There is a way to contact me and apply to work with me on my website as well. And the reason I don't do that, it's not arrogance, by the way. It's just that I know that working with people to make a real transformation for them takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to spread myself too thin. I want to give everything I've got when I'm working with somebody. So I only work with one person at a time, usually for a couple of months, 2-3 months. And I don't overlap. I don't have too many clients going on at once because I want to give it, full attention when I'm working with somebody.
Yeah, I could see that because through your story and through what you say, you really care about people.
I really do care. And I really think you've got to have that complete connection. And if you get the impression that somebody came to help you, Steve, and it's like when you go to the doctors and you want the doctor to really listen to your concerns, but he's got 12 more patients outside and he's a bit distracted and he's not giving you his full attention. You just don't feel supported and listened to, do you?
No. Okay, I'll tell you what we can do. We can go to this. Let's answer some questions here. And let me get on to the radio part because I'm sure we got some here. Dorothy wants to know. Thank you, Michele, for sharing your story about being abused. I've been abused part of my life. But trouble is, I do not want to leave my husband because I love him so much. Um, and we have got children together. Do you think I should stay or shall I go? Well, oh gosh, Michelle. What,
I mean, I would never presume to tell anybody what to do because I don't know Dorothy's situation, but I would ask yourself a couple of questions, Dorothy. You know, you love starts with loving yourself first. And that was one of my biggest lessons, was that I loved my mum and I wanted to fix her and I wanted to make it right. And I couldn't. You can't. People can only fix themselves. So I think a really good question to ask is, do I love myself enough to value myself?
yeah, yeah.
And therefore, you know, when you get the answer, when you value yourself, you then realize that other people's behavior towards you is not love. You know, how do you show love and how do you expect love to be shown to you? And here is the way you're being treated an expression of love? And is it less than you deserve?
Yeah, yeah. But guys, you know what I usually say on here if I hear anything about abuse, and this is I'm going to say this once, and I don't care if people are going to have a go at me, but all I'll say is this: that no man or woman should be hitting each other or being abusive towards each other. And the trouble is, I know it's difficult. I've been there. It's difficult when you're in a relationship and you've got children. But at the end of the day, you've got to kind of like think about yourself and respect yourself. And if someone was hitting me, I'll be gone. And that's it.
And can I just offer something else to Dorothy on that, Steve? Actually, as a child who saw her mother being abusive with her father, I know that's a reverse situation to yours. I picked up on that energy and that deeply affected me and still does to this day. So I would also consider how much of that energy and what's going on around what's going on your children are picking up on too.
That's it. And that's why I said about leave, because because if you don't leave, the children will get affected too, won't they?
It stays with children for a lot. You know, people think that children don't understand what's going on. They do.
They do. Oh yeah, of course they do. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen my dad hit my mum on loads of occasions and stuff. Okay, Rachel, I Stephen Michelle. Thank you for the chat this morning. That was really, really, really good. Can you ask Michelle if she's written a book, and if so, can I buy one?
Oh, I think we had this conversation last time, didn't we, Steve?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
I'm about 2/3 of the way through. My lovely book coach is chasing me all the time, but because it's my autobiography as well, so it's going to be autobiographical stroke self-help, the book. And because it's my own story, it gets tough at times, and I have to take a break from it because it's regurgitating things. So it is coming. I promise you, it's coming in early 2022. So I will let Steve know about it as soon as it's published and send him a copy, and he can tell you honestly what he thinks.
We will get Michelle back on, don't you worry. And this is the question here. We got, hi Steve, would it be possible if Michelle comes back on and talk about more about herself and about what she does? Find it very interesting, and I don't know how you found her, but a good find. Thank you so much.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. That's lovely.
Lucy wants to know, I would love to work with Michelle. How do I contact? How do I contact her? I will put all the links up with her website, Facebook site. I do not give out phone numbers, guys. I'm not allowed to. But what I will do, I will put all the links up on our website later on today. Roger wants to know, hi Steve, I've been abused by my wife for a long time now, but the trouble is, men are so they do not want to tell their friends. I play football each Saturday, and the trouble is, every time I try to tell a friend, I'm afraid that they might laugh at me or say, "Don't be a wuss." It's hard. How do I sort this problem out.
Oh gosh, sorry, who was that? I missed at the beginning.
Roger.
Roger, gosh, I feel for you so much. So my dad was in exactly the same situation. He was abused by my mother. I mean, really quite severely as well. It is really hard for men. I mean, that was in the 60s and 70s. So it was even harder then. I don't know whereabouts in the country you live or whereabouts in the world you live, Roger. But I know in my particular area, Mind, the mental health charity, run a support group for men. And so it might be worth checking with Mind and even with your local library about men's emotional support groups. There's also a really great initiative called Men in Sheds. I don't know whether you know about that. That is men who, with not any particular purpose, but just men that they might be on their own, or they might just have things going on in their lives that they want to escape. And they get together and sort of make things and do things. And I think mainly have cups of tea and toast in a shed somewhere. But I would definitely recommend trying to connect with men who may be in similar positions to you, because I get that it's really difficult to open up to your friends at football who might not be experiencing things like this. But I think you'll also be surprised how many men are facing these kind of things. And, even maybe some of your friends at football might be in a similar situation, but also not wanting to speak up about it. But I would look at Mind, and I would check with your local library and Men in Sheds about support groups, and I would definitely get involved in something like that. And don't even have to share from the get-go, but you can just be in their company and wait until you feel safe and then feel able to speak out. I would definitely recommend that.
Also, Roger, what we do on here, we have counsellors. If you want to speak to any of our counsellors, we can put you in touch with some people right now. And also, we have a support group online. So our own support group, so you can join that. That's not a problem. Men in Shed, that's a very good project. We got one around the corner from us where I live.
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah, that's good. That is. They make things, out of wood and all sorts. Have cups of coffee, and I know there's a pool table in there. Uh, so yeah, and also we do have like a kind of like a men's chat once a week, and you can always join that. So and Mind, we are a very big supporter with Mind. We do a lot of charity stuff with Mind. So yeah, that's good. That's a really good one, Michelle. But if you do need any help, we're here and we're always available. Richard wants to know. Hi, hi Steve. Would it be possible if you can have Michelle back sometime? I'm surprised you haven't scooped it yet on your weekly staff. What are you doing, young man? Get get your backside in gear and scoop her up. Um, we yes, yes. I was told about that the other day, and I will look into it. Thank you. Right. I'll get told off you now. Martin wants to know. Steve. That was really really good. Thank you so much. That really helped me. I find it very interesting when someone goes through quite a lot and come out of the other side. Great on Michelle doing what she does. Hats off to her.
Oh, thank you.
And last couple of questions, guys. Hi, Steve. I can't wait for your book to come out. I know it's coming out on December. Can we? Yeah, you can find it on Amazon. You can pre-book it on Amazon. But the actual book, we are still doing it. We're in the middle of doing it. So if if anybody wants to put something in our book and everything, you're more than welcome. Yeah. What else is there? Lucas, hi Steve. I live in Devon. Can you tell me where you live? I No, I will not tell you where I live. Thank you. Um, Claire wants to know. Hi Steve, I'm getting married on Saturday. Congratulations. Um, would it be possible if you could give me a shout out on the radio later on? I will do. Yeah, later on.
Yay, congratulations.
Yes, yes. Are you married, Michelle?
I'm in a relationship.
Yes, so yes, so don't get married. Don't get married. Anyway, I shouldn't be saying that recently. Where is it to? Barbara wants to know. Hi, Steve. I'm 80 today, but thank you very much for this morning. I felt that Michelle spoken well, and also I loved her story. Did she have a book coming out? We already said she will have a book in early 2022, and so when that soon comes out, we will put it on our website and let everybody know and get her back and talk about a book.
Yeah, I really need to finish this book, don't I?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, guys, I've got to go. But in the meantime, you've got the 80s on the radio, and I'm going to be back ooh, around about 2 o'clock. I just saw my wife putting two fingers up to me, but she was actually saying 2 o'clock. So there you go. So I'll be back at 2 o'clock. Until then, goodbye for now.
Bye.